Welcome to the Alaskaland Podcast, stories from the Fairbanks North Star boroughs past, present, and future, with your host, Mayor Bryce Ward. Each episode, we'll sit down with Fairbanks' most interesting characters for a fascinating conversation about where we've been and where we're going. And now, Mayor Ward.
Hello, everyone. It is the Alaskaland Podcast, and we are here with a very special guest today. We have Hannah Hill, who's here with the Stone Soup Kitchen, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that organization, about who she is, and how they serve Fairbanks and some of the history there. So, Hannah, it is great to have you here. Thank you for being with me this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's always nice to be in the borough building. I was just admiring all the kid art you got around. Took some pictures for my friends who's their kids. And I was like, saw your famous art.
It's great. We love having that here in the building, and it's always a fun thing for folks to come up, and there's like a little bit of a competition on what piece of artwork gets put where, so folks would like to have it in their offices, and so it's really a great thing.
That's wonderful.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, so you're the executive director, and let's talk a little bit about what brought you to Fairbanks and kind of how you got engaged in this organization and supporting Feeding Fairbanks.
Gosh. Let's see. Well, my family moved to Fairbanks when I was a kid, so we moved up here in the early 90s when my father was hired as the director of the borough libraries. So we moved up here from Texas, packed everybody up, moved as far away as possible. And that's how we got here, essentially, was for a job, like many Alaskans, many Fairbanksans specifically. And then we just stayed. After that, it was wonderful. You know, he had worked in a lot of libraries in Texas, and then moving up here was just wonderful. The Nolwenn Library, of course, is something special, truly. And my mom was a special ed teacher with the school district as well, so we got in deep, and that was that. So
I'm putting two and two together, so Greg Hill is your father. Okay, small world. Welcome to Fairbanks, where everybody knows everybody.
Everybody
right?
knows everybody. Little big town is what I call it. You're like, how do we know everybody here? But it's true. We came up here for a job, like many folks do. Long line of settler history in our family, and we just moved up here to do it more, I guess.
That's great. And making an impact pretty routinely, knowing your dad and your work that you're doing. So let's talk maybe a little bit about that. How did you get engaged? What drew you to the kitchen and to the work that they're doing?
Well, I'd known about it for a while, the bread line, but wasn't super involved. I lived out in Esther at the time, so it was kind of from downtown Fairbanks. It's a distance, you know, as much as this town is. But I was at the university as a student for a while and had to work my way through that. So I was working at the university, but needed still another job in order to afford rent and tuition. So I saw an opportunity at the soup kitchen. It was for the administrative assistant to the executive director, who at the time was Jennifer Jolis, the one and only. So she brought me on as super part-time, just filling in the admin stuff type ways, and there you go. I do remember in my interview with her, she said, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I said, "Your seat." I was being sassy, but then many things happened, and here we are.
And she took that seriously.
Yeah, she's still huge in that support. You know, I really appreciated her. She left before I wanted her to go because there's so much to learn from her, like everybody, right? And I had specifically looked into that job, not just because of what it was and who it served, but who was doing it as well, and wanted to incorporate myself and learn from those people at the time. So Jennifer left a little early, and then Ed Bermudez came on, who was then the executive director for a year and was an incredible mentor. He died unexpectedly, and then that's how I got the job. So not the way one wants the job, but it is the way that it happened. And I've been there now in this capacity since 2018.
Great. So you went through the pandemic and everything. Let's maybe talk a little bit about, one of the big things that you do, of course, is provide food to the community. And maybe what does that look like? How do you do that work for the community?
That's a great question. How do we do it? I don't know. It's all based in community support, honestly. Like, if I'm being very real about it, that's how we do it. We have a staff of just 6. 7 in the summer with our gardener. But otherwise, year-round, it's 6 people, and that's it. And yet we turned out last year, just at the soup kitchen, which is just one of our anti-hunger programs, we gave out 47,795 free meals, which is astonishing. It's over 200 a day. We do weekdays, every weekday, regardless of holiday or ice apocalypses. We serve. We've never missed a day of service, regardless of anything. And that's because we have volunteers who come. We have weekday volunteers who serve the food. We have kitchen volunteers who help our chef prepare it and get it ready to go out the door. We have volunteers that go to the Fairbanks Community Food Bank and pick up 3 times a week. We have volunteers that go to the Fairbanks Memorial Hospital and help us do food reclamation with them. We have volunteers that put Calypso kale into their freezers all winter long and then bring it to us once a week because we do not have the storage space for that. We have volunteers that bring us half a caribou. That's all of it. It's people who donate their time and their resources either by physically coming and serving or providing the food that is necessary for us to be able to make these meals happen, because all of our programs are free, and that's part of our keystone values, is that we're serving folks who have very little else, and we're not about to start asking for more from them. We ask for their time, and we ask for, respect, and that's what we get, and everything else is free because of Fairbanks.
And so you talked about some of the ways that people engage. It sounds like it's a complete network, a system that helps support
Yes.
The work that you do. How do people engage in that work if they want to be a supporter, if they want to help volunteer resources or time or food?
Yeah, the best way is just to contact us directly. People can either just come down to us. We're at 507 Gaffney Road. We're there weekdays, or call the office, email us. We have people on staff at all points in time to collect that, and then sort of sort people into what they're most interested in, because not everything's for everyone. Plenty of folks do not want to be serving in the soup kitchen in the morning times, either because that's hard. It is hard. These volunteers are some real tough nuts, I'll tell you. But also, it butts up into regular working hours, so many people just can't come and serve during that time. But they maybe love gardening. That's something that you can do all summer long, and it's much more flexible within that. Or if they want to bake cookies. We always say, the way that somebody wants to help is the way that we can have it. We'll just figure that out. It's just a matter of communicating, building a relationship, and seeing how we can work together.
That's great. Putting those kind of puzzle pieces together, right, is whatever it is that you can do, however it is that you can help. And then part of your job is putting that puzzle together.
Yeah. It's funny, I don't like jigsaw puzzles, but I really love real life puzzles. I enjoy putting together things. I love when we find somebody who fits into a slot. We have a woman who is like, I can only do it at this one particular time of the week, and I just don't even know what that would mean for you. And I was like, well, we really need somebody to haul recycling over to Central Recycling, because we just don't have the time to also do that, but we also don't want to throw away all this cardboard. She said, no problem. She comes, I barely see her, but I only know she's been there when there is no recycling, and once a week. And she's able to do that on her own thing, whenever that works out for her. And it's such a silent little part that makes it such a big impact, so that we're not throwing surplus waste into the dump. Somebody is helping us in a very tangible way. It's wonderful. Yeah. Any way that people can help.
That's great.
Great. Yeah, it is.
So you do 3 meals a day? How many meals a day do you serve? I know breakfast is certainly a big part of that, right?
So we have 4 programs that we run all the time, and the soup kitchen is just the first part of it. So to kind of frame out how our day works and why it is the way that it is, all of the soup kitchen meals happen in the morning time. And what that looks like is some sort of hot cereal, usually fruit-based hot cereal. I know yesterday it was a sweet cherry oatmeal, and then there's also a homemade soup at the same time. Yesterday was yellow split pea. I don't know what today was, but it was yellow split pea soup. And then we have a hot entree that's real protein heavy, and that yesterday was roast pork with stuffing. Mm-hmm. So that's the hot meal, as it were. We do joke breakfast. It's what, or dinner. It's what's for breakfast is the gag, because people are not necessarily on the rise in the morning type timeline, right? It's also really heavily based around what food we can have. Traditional breakfast items are hard to come by because they're expensive. Eggs are expensive. Bacon is expensive. Those are things that do not usually funnel their way into our foodways. Sometimes they do, and then we have a feast. But oftentimes our chefs just receive food of some kind, and they have to make that work. So oftentimes it appears to be more dinnerish. We don't have any complaints around this. So dinner, it's what's for breakfast. And then also at that same time, people can take a sack lunch, which is a real full sack lunch. We try and have fruit and some sort of granola bar, sandwich, everything that we can possibly hustle, we put together in this. So it is a full day's worth of food, just kind of at once. So you can eat what you want, you can take what you want. It depends. Because some folks don't want one or the other. We try and have as much choice as possible in what's going on. We think that's really important for people to not have to take something. It also reduces waste. If you don't want to eat an oatmeal, I don't want you to take the oatmeal. Somebody else loves oatmeal. Let's save for that. So we count our meals based around how many hots we can do in a day, which is about 100. That's just based on the size of the space that we have, the staff that we have, and the resources that we have. Sack lunches after that, or they're counted individually. So that's how we come with our total count for the day. So it's usually around 100 hot meals a day, and then over 100 hot meals or 100 sack lunches. This is sort of the hack is, if you follow us on Facebook, you can see we do a daily count. And it says what the menu was, how many hots, how many sack lunches. When you see the sack lunches outnumbering the hot meals, that's us running out of hot food, which is, at this point, almost every day.
Almost every day.
Almost every day.
So you mentioned Facebook. If folks wanted to track with you online, what's your Facebook tag?
Breadline AK.
Breadline AK.
Yeah.
Okay, so
we're
check
on
that out.
Instagram too.
On Instagram too?
Barely.
All right.
we have pictures.
So the Soup Kitchen is the morning program. You said that there's a number of programs that you do. Is the sack lunch another program that kind of stacks on top of that, or is that still part of the...
It's all morning.
It's all morning? Okay.
Yeah, we do hand out sack lunches all day long as people come, because we have food and we're not going to turn people away from the resources that we have, even if we are quote-unquote closed. So after the morning meal service, what typically happens, it kind of depends season to season what's happening, but at 10 a.m. is usually when our culinary job training program starts. So the soup kitchen is closed, we clean really fast, and then we start the next program. So our two new chefs, so Chef Matt and Abby in the morning time, they run the soup kitchen, and then they're finishing up their day by the time that the other chefs arrive, and that Chef Marisa is our program manager for the culinary job training program, and Chef Leanne is a production chef as well. So then the class goes in the daytime. And we have 2 adult sessions a year in-house with us. And then we spend the summers over at the Fairbanks Youth Facility teaching a age and knife-appropriate class over there. We're not allowed to have knives or sharp objects in a carceral facility, of course, right? So we have to tailor it and still make it be a culinary job training program within these boundaries. So that's all happening after 10 a.m. That goes on year-round, and it takes up a lot of our space. So that's why we cannot have other meal services. People ask us oftentimes, but there's also Immaculate Conception Church. They do lunch as well. We have found that with the ways that exist in Fairbanks, that this works for the people that we serve. So we're able to have multiple programs.
That's great.
Yeah,
and it's really true. I mean, Fairbanks does have. It's a bit of a patchwork, right?
Yeah. For
the services that are out there, but it works, and it's been something that's been working for a number of years. And maybe let's talk a little bit about the history of the soup kitchen. And I think everyone's maybe heard the story of the stone soup. And,
yeah.
So it's a great story of kind of how a community can come together to do something together that they couldn't do alone. Let's talk maybe a little bit about the history of the kitchen and how things got started.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. We're called Stone Soup Cafe for a reason, and it really does model itself off that folktale. Back in 1984, still I would say Fairbanks famous, the Reverend James Hunter and his wife Sharon, looked around Fairbanks, and this was right at the, sort of middle end of the Great Alaska Recession. Post the pipeline boom, then those jobs left, people had moved into urban areas, and then the economics were no longer as robust as they had been previously. So the Hunters lived in Fairbanks and looked around and saw that people were hungry, that people did not have jobs, people did not have food, and that at the time, that was like right around the same time the food bank started. But so like previously there were not these things, and then there needed to be these things. And the Hunters said, what can we do? They made sandwiches. They put them in their backpacks, and they took to the streets of downtown Fairbanks just handing out sandwiches to people. But pretty quickly, they saw that that was not going to meet the need, that the need was larger than two good-hearted people with backpacks filled with sandwiches. So they connected with another local iconoclast, Dick Ferris, and said, what can we do? How can we do this bigger? How can we do this in a sustainable fashion? And Dick, being the way that he is, said, let's find a church. Let's see if they can help us meet this need. That's how the Breadline as an organization was born. We then went from church to church to church, feeding folks out of basements, moving around as necessary, all the way until the early 20-teens when, through the help of a Pacific Northwest church in the city of Fairbanks, we were able to purchase the building that we're in now. And so it's ours. It's our building. And when we got our own place, that's when we were able to launch these other programs. So it went beyond just quote unquote, being a soup kitchen to also being able to tackle issues of hunger and poverty and inequality from other angles, such as a culinary job training program, such as a free community garden, or the Kids Cafe volunteer initiative. All of those started when we got our own building. And prior to that, there hadn't been paid staff. There'd been nobody. There was just a board. There was just volunteers. So really being able to not be unhoused ourselves allowed us to thrive in the way that we are now.
And you've been an anchor, I would say, of kind of like the center of downtown Fairbanks for, 20 years now?
Ages. Yeah.
It's hard to believe a town where that didn't exist. Mm-hmm. Going back to the early days when the Hunters started the program, and then even before the food bank. I mean, it's hard to believe that.
Right.
How could you have a community without that resource?
Especially as large as Fairbanks was, even then. I mean, with that pipeline boom, Fairbanks saw a lot of growth really, really fast, and a lot of new people from places that were not familiar with the way Fairbanks can be, which is, in the winter, hard, and takes a lot of resources to have heating fuel, the little things that people don't think about or have to experience in other places. So,
well, and just the calories to keep warm,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I mean, that can be a huge challenge.
Yeah, it's enormous. We see there's bottomless legs, whatever they call it, a hollow leg. That's what it is, because it's here in Fairbanks, if one is unsheltered, it can be a real struggle. So oftentimes people walk all night to stay warm. And so you're burning calories just to stay alive, but also you're physically moving for hours and hours. So by the time they come to us in the morning times, people are cold and usually wet and ravenous. So we're just like, open your mouth. How many calories can we put inside of that? We have very popular moose juice, which is just high octane Kool-Aid, but it's sugar, and it's something that can just like get somebody kind of perked back up pretty quickly.
Moose juice.
Moose juice.
So it's probably similar to bug juice. Is that's like an old camp?
Is that
a camp juice? It's whatever is in the cupboard. You just dump it in and mix it up.
Yeah, we try and marry like flavors, but it is because again we don't know what we're getting in terms of food or drinks at any point in time. It's always just completely random. So.
And so that maybe speaks to some of the culinary expertise of those that you have working for you that are able to take kind of maybe an eclectic group of foods and put them together to make something that smells delicious.
It's absolutely true. I always say this is why we hire professional chefs. And folks kind of joke, they'll hear a soup kitchen with chef-prepared meals. I'm like, yeah, why would you not hire the best? Generally speaking, always hire the best, right? But this is they use that skill set to use the whole animal, as it were. We don't have food waste coming out of us. We compost everything that we cannot use, which is mostly just like apple cores, and it's very, very small, the amount that we have to throw away at the end of the day, because our chefs know how to turn onion skins into stock. Every single part of every single thing is used to its absolute wholeness. And because they have this background in professional culinary skills, the food they I oftentimes have to ask what a thing is, because I'm like, I don't know, this is all in French? I don't know what it is. And the chefs are always, ho, ho, ho. But, I mean, they're making incredible, like, hollandaise sauce. Like, how are you doing this? They're amazing. They're truly incredible in the work that they put out. We also say that, I believe personally, and we say all the time, that the Soup Kitchen is one of the best restaurants in this town. And that's kind of a joke, but it's also very serious, because our chefs are really good at what they do. We also have a catering arm. Like, that's how good they are. We have a catering arm that is pretty successful, because people have come to know that we have a phenomenal product, and that service goes directly back into keeping our culinary job training program free for our students.
That's great. And where do you see folks go that go through that program? What are they able to do when they build that skill set?
Oh yeah, whatever they want. We have an extraordinarily high employment rate post-graduation. It's an 85% employment rate post-graduation, which is phenomenally high in this terms of work. But it's because we have small class sizes, and we're really able to tailor the program to the person. And I think that's really important, because oftentimes the folks that we're serving there are people that have fallen through just every crack there is. We recently, one of my favorite stories is there's a woman who came through our program, and she was doing great. She was doing, like, when you talk to her, she's really bright, great, but whenever it came to stuff on the board, she was squinting. We asked her finally, we're like, are you having a hard time seeing the board? It's a very small classroom. Right? So we're having a hard time seeing the board. And she goes, yeah, I really can't see that. Turns out she needed glasses, but she didn't think, quote, people like her could have them. We were like, inaccurate. Let's go to the Lions. Went to the Lions, got her a pair of glasses. She was like, fantastic. And she's sitting there bright-eyed and bushy. And then we're still looking at her stuff and her paperwork, and it's clear that something else is not correct, right? So we finally, after like 2 weeks of this class, she felt comfortable enough with us to say that she couldn't read. This is a 45-year-old woman who is incredibly bright, has had jobs, like all kinds of stuff, but she had built up this system because she had a learning disability that she'd never been diagnosed with, that kept her from being able to learn to read in public school. So she just made systems to like get around that until she was now in front of us, and we were like, okay, what can we do? So we went to the literacy council and we said, hey, we have this really bright person. What can we do for her? At the end of that program, she was reading at the American average level.
That's great.
She just needed somebody to say, you just need to learn different. You need someone to notice that you have a thing that is just your thing, and be like, okay, how can we meet this need? Which is like, the Literacy Council is, 20 feet away from us?
Yeah, I was going to say, there's your neighbor, right?
They're our
Next
neighbor.
door.
Yeah, and they worked with her. They said, okay, no problem. And they talked with her about how she could learn. And she said that, like, her whole life, she thought that she was not smart. And I was like, no, a not smart person, first off, doesn't exist. I don't believe in that as a thing. But also, you've made it this far and nobody knew? That's incredible, your skill sets. So, this is a rambling story to say as such. That is a person who then went on to lead a team at her job on base, was then able to get transferred down back to where her family was in the lower 48, who she'd been estranged from for years. Now she lives down there with them. She holds her grandbabies. And it's like, we provide an opportunity, but our students do the work. Yep. She did that work, and she repaired the things in her life that she wanted to repair. That's what people can do. Literally anything.
Literally changing lives, right? I mean, being able to help someone identify those needs, whether it be a set of glasses or just a skill set that needs to be developed.
Yep.
That's an amazing story.
It's incredible. I think about her often, but she's just one of the 50 students that we've graduated. Each have that kind of story. They're a person who just fell through a lot of cracks until they're an adult saying, like, what do I do now? And a team of chefs is going to look at you and say, I don't know, we're going to figure it out. We contract locally with counselors also, so that we can do, we don't care if you go into culinary work. We do not care what you do afterwards in terms of the type of employment that you have. It's about developing job and life skills that mean you can actually pursue your dreams. We have most of our people are interested in cooking, so most of them do go into that kind of profession. But other ones got out of the class and they were like, man, I don't want to cook. And we're like, that's fine. And now they go and they work somewhere else. But they have that, first off, you can put it on your resume that you've done something for X amount of time and received these, benchmarks, so you've done the things. That's great. But also, it's just about getting the skills you need to succeed, whatever that looks like for you. So we're not too picky.
So when people think of the soup kitchen, it's so much more than just foods.
Yeah.
We're just so much more than meeting someone's need for food. It's meeting other life skills and literally providing an opportunity to help build someone up.
Yeah. We believe that people just deserve more opportunities, because a lot of the folks that we see have made some big mistakes, but also a lot of times that comes out of desperation and trauma. And our whole motto is, where you're going is way more important than where you've been.
Amen.
That's, that's it. If we don't, we all deserve that. And we're just a place that we're built around this as a trauma-informed harm reduction organization. That's our mission and that's our job. We believe in our whole mission statement. Our entire mission statement is feeding people and affirming lives. That's what we do.
That's great. Well, so we talked a little bit about how folks could find you on Facebook. It's Breadline AK, or on Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if folks want to be involved further, just reach out, call you, contact you, stop by. Yeah. It sounds like there's a whole myriad of different ways that folks can be engaged. And it's so much more than just food, right? It's about people.
Yeah, exactly. It's about community. I really believe that I'm polishing some kind of philosophy that I don't have well defined yet, but I believe community is the answer to a lot of things. And I think when we can humanize each other and sit in these rooms with each other and learn who somebody is as a person, we're more patient, we're more kind with each other, and we serve folks that traditionally are sort of pushed to the outskirts. So we're about building these networks, engaging with folks, as a whole. We try and believe that it's not just, we do believe that we're not a place for any certain person. We are a community space for everybody. We're taken care of by our community as a nonprofit. That's part of our mission, is to take care of the community, but we are taken care of by the community as well. And if Fairbanks didn't support what we do, we could not exist. So clearly we're talking to some folks. We're going to try and keep that up.
Well, that's great. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being able to share a little bit of the story, to talk about the work that you're doing, and hopefully encourage folks to be engaged in that work, in whatever capacity, whether it's picking up recyclables or donating food or helping cook or grow food in your garden.
The garden's so fun.
There's so many different ways. So I just want to say thank you for that opportunity to share this with the community.
Gosh.
And I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much for letting me come up here and talk to you and talk about the Breadline. I love doing it.
That's so awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and until next time, we'll see you out there.
Fairbanks, oh Fairbanks.
Thanks for listening to the Alaskaland Podcast. We hope you found today's conversation enlightening. For more episodes, listen on your mobile device through your favorite podcast app, or watch at youtube.com/Fairbanks North Star Borough.